Hey, everybody. So we got a big Iran update coming today. There's a lot going on. This was the first day of negotiations. So let's start with President Trump right at the beginning of his press gaggle on Air Force One.
We had very, very good talks today having to do with Russia, Ukraine. Something could be happening. We likewise had very good talks on Iran. Iran looks like it wants to make a deal very badly. We have to see what that deal is. But I think Iran looks like they want to make a deal very badly, as they should. Last time they decided maybe not to do it, but I think they probably feel differently. We'll see what the deal is. It'll be different than last time. And we have a big armada. We have a big fleet heading in that direction. We'll be there pretty soon.
Okay, so first of all, that's classic Trump, where he, in the same breath as he says that there's going to be a deal, he also goes ahead and reminds, that we want to make a deal. We hope there's a deal, and we have a big armada going over there. This is classic Trump, where he does the misdirection play, where he says both things. Every time he talks about the possibility of a deal and how we want a deal, he also reminds everyone about all the military assets that are accumulating there, and how we're making it seem like we're getting ready for a military strike. And that's the way to keep the other side off balance and be unpredictable, which is a doctrine for President Trump, going all the way back to his first election campaign, where he talked about the need to become unpredictable. I wrote about this in my, in my latest column in the Jerusalem Post from this past week. I wrote about President Trump's doctrine of unpredictability. That is intentional. So it seems to a lot of people that he's all over the place because of the mixed messages, and people are confused. So they think he's erratic. He's not erratic at all. He constantly, deliberately gives these misdirection plays. Now, later on in the press gaggle, he was asked again about Iran. Let's go find that.
No rush. We have, very good talks. It can be reached. Well, you have to get in position. We have plenty of time.
Kushner met with Iran's foreign minister today. You also had Brad Cooper there, the head of CENTCOM. A deal doesn't look like it's been reached yet. How long are you willing to wait?
A deal can be reached. Well, you have to get in position. We have plenty of time. If you remember Venezuela, we waited around for a while, and we're in no rush. We have very good talks going with Iran. We have very good talks going with Russia and Ukraine. We're doing a lot of good talking. And I think we had the results today were with Iran. It was a meeting. We're going to meet again early next week. And they want to make a deal. Iran, as they should want to make a deal. They know the consequences if they don't. If they don't make a deal, the consequences are very steep. So we'll see what happens. But they had a very good meeting with a very high representative of Iran, and we'll see how it all turns out.
We'll give it a ripe scoops.
See that. By the way, I'd love to see that. If we could do that, I'd love to see it.
Mr. President, is a deal that is acceptable that only covers with Iran? Is there a deal that only covers nuclear that would be acceptable to you? Because they just have nuclear. They don't want to have anything else.
Like deal that would be acceptable, but the one thing, and right up front, no nuclear weapons. If we could have made that deal 2 years ago, we would have made that deal, but they weren't willing to do that. Now they are willing to do it. So they're willing to do much more than they would have a year and a half ago, or even a year ago when don't forget, we've only been doing this for exactly 1 year. And we started with them a few months after the beginning of this term. This term has been amazing. But the results could surprise people. If they would have offered this deal originally when we first started, it would have been accepted immediately. We'll see what happens now.
Mr. President.
Okay, so let's unpack what we just saw there. So a couple things that he mentioned. First of all, he was asked about Brad Cooper being over there. He didn't say anything about that, but Brad Cooper is the commander of CENTCOM. Okay, so he's the top military commander in the region. He's someone who generally has been pretty strong in terms of being favorable to Israel. So from the Israelis' perspective, the Israelis are happy to see Brad Cooper in those meetings, along with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. Kushner and Witkoff are kind of seen as appeasers, very often naive about the Muslim world. and having Brad Cooper there was also an important signal to the Iranians. Okay, so we see this in some of the news reports about what took place there, that the Iranians interpreted Brad Cooper's presence there as kind of like a smoking gun. I'm sorry, kind of like a gun on the table, like a warning being given. Here, in an unusual step, U.S. Central Command Commander Admiral Brad Cooper participated in the talks, a move Iran reportedly interpreted as a threatening signal, almost like a gun on the table. At the same time, the United States is preparing military measures on the ground to demonstrate its seriousness while continuing to build up its war machine in the region in case of a prolonged confrontation. Now, Abbas Araghchi, for good measure, the Iranian foreign minister, doubled down and said that Iran's enriched uranium and ballistic missiles are non-negotiables for the Islamic Republic, and it will discuss with the U.S. the proposition to give up on either, meaning it won't. The regime's top diplomat, Abbas Araghchi, said, "As for zero enrichment, that is outside the scope of the negotiations for us. Enrichment is an undeniable right for us, and it must continue. Even through bombing us, they could not destroy it because technology cannot be destroyed by bombing." And he's prepared to reach an agreement that assures them that the enrichment will be peaceful. Now, let me make something very, very clear, okay? Which I've said this before, we got to say it again. Iran does not have a civilian nuclear energy program. They simply do not, okay? And let me explain. Iran has vast natural gas reserves and very cheap electricity already. So a costly nuclear program makes absolutely no sense for them if it was just for power generation. Okay, they could just build more refineries and refine their own oil and their own gas and provide energy that way. The fact that their people barely have electricity is not because they need nuclear energy. It makes zero sense. Now, what's more, they've lost about $1 trillion as a result of sanctions because of their nuclear program. Okay, so this is completely irrational. They want to have cheaper energy through nuclear or more energy through nuclear, even though their energy is pretty cheap when they make it. And they're willing to lose about $1 trillion because of sanctions in order to have the nuclear program. It would be way cheaper to invest a little bit more in more refinement of their own gas. It makes zero sense. Right? And nuclear contributes a tiny, tiny fraction of Iran's electrical grid, the program, which means that, and they could have made a civilian nuclear program. They have nuclear power plants anyway. And what's more, they have these deep underground enrichment sites. Why on earth, if it's a civilian power program, would you be building the enrichment sites deep, deep, deep buried underground? Okay, they're obviously not for civilian purposes. The whole thing is ridiculous. Okay, so this is a very important point. Don't ever buy the propaganda that Iran might have peaceful intentions for its nuclear power program. It's absolute nonsense. Okay, so so that's where that stands. So Abbas Araghchi is saying, no, we're not going to even touch this stuff. Speaking of ballistic missiles, Araghchi said this is purely defensive matter. It's not negotiable, neither now nor in the future, because regional issues pertain to the region and are not related to countries outside of it. These are internal matters concerning the Iranian people, and no foreign party can interfere in our internal affairs, as we have made clear many times. Now, I love this. As someone who lives in Israel, I love the fact that Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister of Iran, is saying that no outside country can interfere in our internal affairs. You've been making war on us, on Israel, for 45 years, okay? Every war we fought in the north, in Lebanon, repeatedly with Hezbollah, every war we fight with Hamas down in the Gaza Strip, this is all funded by Iran. The Iranian proxies, they pour billions and billions of dollars every year into trying to destroy the state of Israel. And you're saying that no one has the right to interfere in your internal affairs? How about not interfering in Israel's internal affairs, like killing people? Okay? Look, if you are going to attack Israel, then Israel has every right to deal with you. Okay? So Israel's holding back right now. The Americans, I said this in my previous update, the Americans have asked the Israelis to hold back on attacking Iran while these negotiations go on. But it's just this statement kind of triggered me. Like the Iranians saying that no one can interfere in their internal affairs. All they do is interfere in the internal affairs of everybody else, most notably, of course, America. Now, at the end of this statement, Abbas Araghchi said the following: "The possibility of war is always present, and we're prepared for it. This preparedness is aimed at finding solutions to avoid war. I told the American negotiators yesterday, you have two options with us: war and diplomacy. Our option is diplomacy, but we are even more prepared for both than before, and we hope America will choose diplomacy. If America launches an attack against us, we do not have the capability to attack its territory, so we will attack the American bases in the region." Look, he said it right out. We will attack the American bases in the region. And then he makes this statement: "This will draw the entire region into war." Now, let me make this very clear. I'm here going to make a bold prediction. There will not be a regional war if America attacks Iran. Let me explain why. In the 12-day war in June, nobody helped Iran. Nobody. Not even countries that Iran had signed defense treaties with. Nobody lifted a finger. Not the Chinese, not the Russians, no Arab or Muslim country. Nobody lifted a finger to help the Iranians. In fact, even their own proxies, Hezbollah did nothing. The Houthis in Yemen, I think, launched 3 missiles that didn't cause much damage. And Iraqi Hezbollah launched a few drones. They basically symbolic. They did nothing. No one lifted a finger. There is no possibility in my mind, when I think about all the different countries in the region, of any sovereign nation in this region, no matter how much they hate Israel or hate America, there's no one who's going to come to the aid of the Iranians and fight the U.S. and drag them and open themselves up to the U.S. flattening them. There will not be a regional war. You're going to hear a lot of this from the side, even in America, even on our side, those people who don't want there to be an attack, the people, let's say, the isolationists, for example, on the right, the more isolationist types, you're going to hear them talking about how this is going to escalate into a regional war. I'm telling you, this will not escalate into a regional war. There is, I put the chances of it at 0. Now, how did Israel respond to all of this? So the fact that President Trump said that he might be willing to accept a deal that only deals with the nuclear is very worrisome to the Israelis. So Prime Minister Netanyahu is heading to Washington again. Netanyahu-Trump meeting moved forward to Wednesday amid fear Trump backing off red lines. Okay, so there's a real worry on the Israeli side that the Americans are backing off the red lines, that meaning that they're backing off the red lines on the ballistic missiles, on the proxies, and of course on the treatment of their own people. But from Israel's security perspective, the ballistic missiles are a huge existential danger to Israel. Okay, and the proxies have been attacking us for decades. It's not just about the nuclear. People misunderstood the 12-day war. Israel was not attacking Iran to get rid of the nuclear. Israel was attacking Iran because Iran is an enemy. Okay, so now, despite the fact that President Trump said that he'd accept a deal only on the nuclear, at the meeting, it says here, the Americans presented their red lines, halting uranium enrichment, removing enriched uranium, limiting ballistic missiles in both quantity and range, and ending funding for proxy forces. Iranian representatives rejected all of the demands and continued to insist on maintaining their right to enrich uranium. The talks focused largely on conditions for negotiations, and here too, no real breakthrough was achieved. Okay, Admiral Brad Cooper was there. I mentioned that. Here, look at this. Israel believes the Americans are not naive and will not allow Iran to stall. At the same time, there are concerns in Jerusalem that President Trump ultimately wants a deal and may compromise on at least some demands. Quote, Israel will not give up its principles and hopes the Americans will stand firm on the basic conditions for a good agreement, an Israeli official said. Okay, so the coordination between Israel and the U.S. continues, and Netanyahu is going to Washington to talk to Trump. But at the same time, look what Trump is. Trump is a master of leverage. This is right before the negotiations, the day before. What does Trump do? He signs an executive order calling for tariffs on any country that trades with Iran. This order issued on Friday does not specify the rate that can be imposed, but uses 25% as an example. It says the tariff could apply to goods imported into the U.S. from any nation that directly or indirectly purchases, imports, or otherwise acquires any goods or services from Iran. So here he is sanctioning any country that does business with Iran on the day the negotiations are beginning, just to tighten the screws a little more on the Iranians. Donald Trump is a master of using leverage. So heading right into the negotiations, just to signal that not only are we not backing off, but we're going to make life even more difficult for you if you don't give in, he puts a new batch of sanctions on Iran through punishing countries that do business with it. So that's where things stand. Again, so what we're looking ahead to is further rounds of negotiations. The Israelis are going to look out for Israel's security interests. Let's make it very clear. If the Americans decide that this is all about the nuclear and walk away, Israel's still going to deal with the ballistic missiles at some point. Okay, Israel is not going to allow Iran to continue to threaten it. And frankly, Israel has every interest in bringing down the Iranian regime that has been attacking it for a long time. So as much as a lot of Americans are like, oh, we don't want a regime change war, from an Israeli perspective, hey, these guys have been attacking us. We have nothing to apologize for wanting to take down this regime. All right, that's the update for today, folks. There'll be more to come. This is obviously a very fluid situation, and please keep watching and please keep spreading the word about the channel. And of course, as always, go check out everything we're doing at Israel 365's YouTube channel. God bless.